Hi, I'm Gene Benson. This video is the third of a three-part series presented by our safety initiative, Vectors for Safety. Please visit vectorsforsafety.com for a wide variety of aviation safety material. While you are there, please sign up for our free monthly newsletter to keep informed of upcoming webinars, new online courses, and more. Now, let's look at part 3 of Sometimes It's the Little Things. This accident involved a Beech V-35B Bonanza. The pilot and sole occupant was seriously injured in the crash, which occurred during a night landing attempt. The pilot reported that he was landing his airplane at night and mistook the hangar lights for runway lights. The airplane struck trees on the final approach, then the ground, before coming to rest inverted. The pilot said that in retrospect, he was on the incorrect radio frequency when he attempted to turn on the pilot-activated runway lights. The NTSB probable cause finding states, quote, "The pilot's use of an incorrect radio frequency when attempting to turn on the runway lights, resulting in an attempt to land the airplane while aligned with the airport hangar lights," end quote. Our little lesson to be learned: we should research all expected frequencies prior to flight and have the list handy during the flight. This accident involved a Cessna 182. The private pilot and one passenger were not injured, but another passenger received serious injuries. The pilot reported that, during the approach, he noticed the airplane was high, so he reduced power and lowered the nose. While correcting, he was talking to his passenger and became distracted. He realized that he was not at a good landing attitude, so he added power and pulled back on the yoke. Subsequently, the airplane landed hard, the nose landing gear collapsed, and the fuel system ruptured. The airplane veered left and exited the runway onto adjacent grass. The airplane was destroyed by post-accident fire. The pilot added as a safety recommendation that maintaining a sterile cockpit must always be a priority during landing. The NTSB probable cause states, quote, "The pilot's improper landing flare, which resulted in a hard landing and post-accident fire. Contributing to the accident was the pilot's distraction during short final," end quote. For our little lesson to be learned, first maintain a stabilized approach. If the approach becomes unstabilized, execute a go-around. And maintain a sterile cockpit during taxi and critical phases of flight. And one more thing, the pilot reported that his last flight review or equivalent was completed a little more than 5 years prior to the accident. Had he completed a flight review or a phase of wings within the preceding 24 months as required by regulations, would an instructor have reviewed stabilized approach and sterile cockpit procedures with him? Recurrent training is important if we are to be safe. This accident illustrates the importance of being familiar with all established procedures regarding the aircraft you fly. It involved a PA-28 airplane. Fortunately, no one was injured. The NTSB report includes the following, quote, "The private pilot stated that he attempted to start the airplane's engine, but that it would not start. On the 5th attempt, he followed the starting engine when flooded checklist. As the propeller was turning with the starter motor engaged, white smoke began to emanate from the engine cowling." Then the report continues. "He then turned off the master switch, exited the airplane, and opened the engine cowling. Flames suddenly emanated from the left side of the engine. The engine and compartment subsequently sustained substantial fire and heat damage." Examination of the wreckage revealed that the primer control was not in and locked. Review of the pilot's operating manual for the airplane revealed that, if an engine fire occurs during start, the pilot should move the mixture control to idle, move the throttle control to full open, and continue to turn the engine with the starter motor in an attempt to pull the fire into the engine. If the pilot had followed this procedure, it is likely that the fire would have been extinguished and prevented further damage to the airplane. The NTSB report continues, quote, "He then turned off the master switch, exited the airplane, and opened the engine cowling. Flames suddenly emanated from the left side of the engine. The engine and compartment subsequently sustained substantial fire damage and heat damage. Examination of the wreckage revealed that the primer control was not in and locked. Review of the pilot's operating manual for the airplane revealed that, if an engine fire occurs during start, the pilot should move the mixture control to idle, move the throttle control to full open, and continue to turn the engine with the starter motor in an attempt to pull the fire into the engine. If the pilot had followed this procedure, it is likely that the fire would have been extinguished and prevented further damage to the airplane." End quote. The NTSB probable cause finding states, the pilot's failure to follow checklist procedures for an engine fire during start. Our little lesson? Be familiar with all procedures related to any aircraft you fly. Memorize any procedure that might be needed quickly. This accident involved a relatively simple airplane, the Aranca 7AC. The photo shown is of the actual accident airplane. The accident illustrates that even on a simple airplane, maintenance cannot be neglected. The private pilot departed for a local personal flight on a winter day with an outside air temperature of about 6 degrees Celsius. About 1 hour after takeoff, the pilot's brother saw the airplane maneuvering near his home, which was in a rural area about 31 miles from the departure airport. The airplane did not return to the departure airport, and the accident site was located in an open field 2 days later, about 4 miles from the pilot's brother's home. Examination of the accident site revealed wreckage and impact signatures consistent with the pilot losing control of the airplane. Examination of the engine's exhaust muffler revealed cracks in several locations, and the muffler's shroud contained a layer of exhaust residue. 6 months before the accident, the pilot and the mechanic who had previously performed an annual inspection on the airplane became aware of the crack in the muffler near a weld that the pilot had performed. The pilot had purchased a replacement muffler, but it was not installed before the accident. A carbon monoxide detector was not on board the airplane. The NTSB report goes on to say, quote, "The carbon monoxide likely entered the airplane's cabin because of the cracked engine exhaust muffler." End quote. The NTSB probable cause finding states, quote, "The pilot's impairment due to carbon monoxide poisoning from a known cracked engine exhaust muffler, which resulted in a loss of aircraft control. Contributing to the accident was the pilot's decision to continue flying the airplane without properly repairing the exhaust muffler." End quote. Our little lesson? Do not neglect known maintenance issues. Most of us are not experienced aircraft maintenance technicians. Sometimes an issue that seems like a little thing can turn out to be a very big thing. A carbon monoxide detector is a good investment in safety. One of the little things that, if overlooked, can get us into trouble is the pitot tube blocked by the cover. This Beech Baron was damaged during a runway overrun following an aborted takeoff attempt. The pilot noticed that the airspeed indicator was not responding during the takeoff roll and attempted to abort. He could not stop on the remaining turf runway, ran off the end of the runway, and through a fence. No one was injured, but the airplane suffered some damage. As part of the pilot's report to the NTSB, he stated, "My last touch pre-flight memory list is fuel, oil, tires, props, surfaces. Add to the above the specific words chocks, cowl plugs, pitot tube covers." The NTSB probable cause finding states, quote, "The pilot's failure to remove the pitot tube cover during the pre-flight inspection, which resulted in his delayed decision to reject the takeoff with insufficient runway remaining to safely stop the airplane." End quote. What's the little lesson here? Verify the removal of chocks, cowl plugs, and pitot tube covers before flight. Here's a little thing that we might add to our pre-flight passenger briefing. Point out the rudder pedals and remind passengers to keep their feet clear of them. A Rayon's S6 similar to the one shown was substantially damaged when it crashed just after takeoff. Fortunately, no one was injured. The pilot stated that just after takeoff the airplane entered uncoordinated flight to the left. He applied right rudder to correct, but felt that the rudder was ineffective. After clearing trees at the end of the runway, the pilot elected to conduct a precautionary landing in a field. He stated that the airplane's rate of descent was high and that the nose landing gear collapsed upon touchdown. The airplane subsequently nosed over and came to rest inverted. According to the pilot, his passenger was apprehensive about the flight and inadvertently applied pressure to the left rudder pedal with his foot throughout the takeoff and accident sequence. The NTSB probable cause finding states the passenger's inadvertent interference with the rudder controls during the takeoff. In the safety recommendations section of the pilot's report to the NTSB, he stated, "I should have instructed the passenger to keep his feet away from the rudder pedals." Our little lesson here is to remind passengers to keep clear of the rudder pedals and all other flight controls at all times. Thanks for watching part 3 of Sometimes It's the Little Things. Please don't forget to visit vectorsforsafety.com and sign up for our newsletter. Also, please subscribe to this channel so that you will be informed of new videos when they are released. I'm Gene Benson, and please always remember to fly like your life depends on it.